Welcome to A Little More History with Mrs. Moore. Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. Moore. I want to welcome you to one of our first flipped lessons. And this one is called The Student's Role in a Flipped Lesson. So we've talked about flipped lessons in class before. That is when you're going to do most of the learning at home. But I want to let you know what the expectations are as you're doing some of these flipped lessons. Okay, so we'll start with what is a flipped lesson. And I'm going to take myself off for a second here. A flipped lesson is when the teacher gives you your notes or reading to do at home so that you're prepared to discuss the material the next day. So what that means is it's not passive. You're not just going to be sitting there and listening to me give you notes. You're going to be working so that you are prepared to discuss those notes the next day. It's a type of homework where you're asked to do some of the learning on your own. So if I'm giving you notes, let's say prehistory, you are going to be actively engaging in those notes. You're going to be taking some notes yourself, and you're going to be doing some things so that you're prepared to discuss the material. Okay, so what do you need to do on your end if I assign a flipped lesson? Well, number one, you're going to need to print out the notes for that particular lesson. Those notes you'll find on your LMS. And so you can either print them out at school on the library's printer, or if your printer is hooked up to your computer, you can print it at home. Or perhaps you're going to need to email it to your parents so that they can print it out on the computer at home. But you're going to need to print out the notes. You're going to need to listen carefully as I present notes like this. And then while I'm giving you the notes, the students are going to need to write questions or highlight the important information next to each slide. Now, I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a second. The last part then is that you need to come to school having either understood the notes or have questions about them. So let me show you what I mean. This is a screenshot of what notes might look like. And you'll notice that we've got the title slide here, Living in the Stone Age, and then I've got another slide underneath here. If we're talking about this particular slide and you're following along with me with the notes, I want you to take notes over here. You notice how there are a bunch of lines. This particular slide would have a bunch of lines here. I want you to take notes there. And those notes could be as simple as, I don't get it. It could be something that you've highlighted on the slide before. It could be a question. It could be something that you thought was really important. But on this sheet that's where you're going to take your notes as I'm giving you the notes through a flipped lesson. Okay, now how much time is this going to take? When you first start taking notes, it may take you about 10 minutes to watch the notes and then maybe 10 minutes to understand them. That means you can go back and replay, or you can stop and start as many times as you need as you're taking notes. Remember, you're not writing down everything. I'm giving you all the slides, but you're writing your own notes so that you remember what it is that we've talked about. And some of those might, again, just be highlights. Now, some students will want to watch the notes a few times to make sure they really understand what's been presented, and that's fine. But as you get better at interacting with the notes, the time will get faster for most students. So I'm going to say that about 15 minutes is really what the average student would take after we've done flipped lessons a couple of times. Okay, now, what about extending the lesson? What if you're really interested in the topic? What if we're talking about a particular type of fossil and you're really interested in that? Well, then feel free to surf around and see what else you can find on the topic. You might want to keep some of that information on file. You might want to print it out. You might want to just put it in a history file so that when you come to class the next day and we're talking about it, you can share what you've learned with us. So you can be in charge of this part of the lesson. You can search a lot of different sites, and I'll try to give you some of those that I think would be really cool to take a look at afterwards. But that's for you to do. That's on your own. Okay, and so that's what a flipped lesson would look like. If you have any questions about this, please come talk to me. And again, we'll be going over some of this in class, but I really want us to start looking at these flipped lessons, to look at you listening to the lecture at home. And then when you come into class the next day, we're going to be doing some activities based on what you have learned. Okay. Thank you, guys. Love you a lot. Bye.